Salanami. Salanami. Salanami.
We live on a magnificent planet. The Earth provides us with air, water, food, and energy, all that is necessary for life to flourish. But human beings have begun to alter the Earth, and increasingly we're experiencing the consequences.
I'm John D. Liu. For 20 years, I've been pursuing an inquiry into how natural ecosystems function and the relationship between ecosystems and climate change, the economy, and social stability.
In China's Lus Plateau, I learned that it is possible to rehabilitate large-scale damaged ecosystems. Seeing this made me realize that ecological restoration is the great work of our time, and this propelled me to extend my inquiry to a planetary scale. I've been documenting and communicating about this ever since. It's clearly very important. It's been continuously fascinating, and it's also been a lot of fun. Inspired by South Africa's determination to peacefully overcome the painful legacy of apartheid, I've come to see what lessons I can learn here about healing the Earth.
When I die one day, I should leave something behind, and I should leave it in a better condition than I've received it.
Forever, I will stay involved in trying to build economies behind restoration.
The 21st century should be the century of ecological restoration, a restoration industry.
Join me here in the Eastern Cape of South Africa for Finding Common Ground, the art of healing the Earth.
This is the Baviaanskloof, the Valley of the Baboons, in South Africa's Eastern Cape. This is one of the most biologically diverse areas of the country. I've come here pursuing my quest to understand how the Earth's ecosystems function and the potential of restoration. I'm meeting with Pete Kruger, one of the first farmers in the region to recognize that the type of commercial farming traditionally used here is not sustainable.
What's the future of this farm if it's been managed the way it is? There's no future.
No, this is a dust bowl.
It's a tragedy that's going to happen.
But look at that. I mean, this is like all the organic matter has already been
Gone.
removed.
Yeah.
If it's like this, it's finished.
It's worth nothing. I wonder how many tons per hectare topsoil was lost here.
Come on over here, Bacchus. Yeah.
Pete's wife, Margrethe, took me to see the river where children used to play.
They actually also caught some fish here.
Need a hand?
And then they brought the electricity into the valley, national grid, and the people started pumping water 24/7. And with the first year, nobody noticed the difference. But after 3 years, suddenly everybody realized that the water was gone and the river vegetation just dried up and died.
And they were pumping this for irrigation?
For irrigation, and they expanded their fields, produced more. Everything was subsidized, so the people had the money to do this. But they never realized that although they had the money, they didn't have more natural resources. That remained the same.
Wow. This biome is very specialized. It's an edge system between the karoo and the thicket. What you see here is that this landscape has been adapted to grazing. And over several generations, most of the topsoil has eroded away. And that triangle in the middle is where the fence line stopped the grazers from going over, and you can see there it's much more functional. When the vegetation is lost on the hillsides due to grazing, when the rains come, enormous gullies form. This is like an open wound on the earth, and it shows that just 200 years of unsustainable agriculture can erase millions of years of evolution.
Over 500 million years ago, Africa was the center of the giant supercontinent Gondwanaland, whose tectonic breakup formed South America, Antarctica, Australia, India, Madagascar, and Africa.
In the last 20 million years, this part of Africa has experienced two major geologic uplifts that have brought these sediment layers more than a kilometer higher than they were before. And that's why the Baviaanskloof has such amazing geology now.
Biological processes over evolutionary time created, constantly filtered, and continuously renewed the atmosphere, the hydrological cycle, and the fertility of the soil. Unique plant life evolved that was perfectly suited to each region's climate. Within fully functional ecosystems, early human beings emerged. In this region, there are ancient cave paintings, some tens of thousands of years old, as early peoples documented their lives and their beliefs. DNA evidence shows that all human beings on the earth are related to each other. In other words, we are all Africans, and these are our ancestors communicating with us. In comparison to geologic and evolutionary time, all of human history is but a moment. Of course, if you're waiting for a bus in the Baviaanskloof, you might have to wait for what seems like a very long time. In the last few hundred years, South African history was dominated by colonization. The colonial era gave rise to one of the world's most unequal and repugnant social systems, apartheid. This racist ideology prolonged the oppression of the majority of South Africa's people for several decades after the establishment of the South African Republic in 1961. After long heroic struggle, suffering and sacrifice, the people of South Africa finally ended apartheid in 1994, and Nelson Mandela, the leader of the African National Congress, was elected president.
Our people making history. Africa!
The heart of the Valley of the Baboons is the Baviaanskloof Nature Reserve. In this popular but remote tourist destination, it is possible to see wildlife and natural vegetation with very few human impacts. Within this natural system, we can find beautiful flowing water, unlike in the agricultural lands, which we have seen are degraded. All the water coming from the Baviaanskloof and other water catchments flowing to the Algoa Bay are collected in dams to serve the downstream users.
This dam was being built when I first arrived in South Africa for the first time in 1967. But it's a little strange because the dam was built by prisoners.
In the shadow of the Koha Dam is an innovative educational experiment. For several years, international scholars have been working at the Living Lands Presence Learning Village, and their work is beginning to have an impact.
Hey.
Hey, John. Welcome back at the Learning Village.
Thanks very
Do you
much.
want to go and have a look?
Sure.
The future of the Learning Village is now really expanding. We've been having a lot of students, but we're now looking at upscaling that and getting students in from South Africa, from different universities, and as well continue what we've been doing, really doing fact-finding on understanding the system better, and then as well starting finding solutions. This is the Working for Water nursery at the Learning Village. So it's been here for now 7 years, and it's been growing over the last years a lot, mainly propagating indigenous trees and plants. The Baviaans Grove is really ready for change. They really see that they need to change. They have an understanding together where they can go to, but now we need to do the science to provide them with the right solution, so when they make a decision, it's well supported by facts and science.
The Living Lands is also assisting the South African government in public works projects, like Working for Wetlands.
How does it feel to be working to improve the earth and to improve the vegetation cover?
Te sien en ander mense te laat sien wat gedoen is en wat na die mal. Jy kan sien wat dit opgelewer het.
We're trying to tackle a number of problems here, or a number of issues, and one of them, probably the strongest, is job creation and poverty alleviation. And then together, we're merging that together with restoration and better environmental practices.
Well, what are they working on?
What they're trying to do is just to loosen the soil, and then we'll pack it with acacia as what we call brush packing. And that just allows for better infiltration of water and slows down the runoff. We do sediment traps, which also slows down water and traps any sediment that will be coming down in the high runoff stages.
And when you do this work, are you looking at the scientific implications and how effective some of these measures might be?
For sure. I mean, that's always the trick with restoration, is you come into an area generally that hasn't been researched enough, so a lot of it's trial and error. That's where Living Lands comes in with the Learning Village, and really to document the process and get good data.
The work that programs like Working for Wetlands are doing is useful, but it really has to be done at a massive scale. Rural communities like Zymanshoek are far from the mainstream of South African society and offer few opportunities other than public works programs in the way of jobs.
The Working for Wetlands program is not always happening. So what happens when it's not on?
If it is not on, we are unemployed. Like you see, all of us, we don't have work. We are just sitting at home doing nothing.
So this is your house?
Yes, this is my house.
Do you feel that you can stay here for the rest of your life?
I don't like to go and stay in the cities because I'm not used to all that danger and all that crime and things. There's no work opportunities, but for me it's better.
While South Africa has taken the first steps away from segregation, in communities like Zymanshoek, integration and equal opportunity still seems a long way off.
Places like us where we are not in the limelight. Most of the people don't even know about us. So you can't say it changed a lot for us because we are still living in the same conditions. Only the electricity we have, water we have, but other things, we can't say it changed for better for us.
Do I hear something?
Yes, it's the donkey cart.
The donkey cart. Where is that donkey? Oh my goodness. Let's go see it. Okay. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I think it's falling this way. I should be sitting in the middle. So what do you say when he gives you wood?
Baie dankie.
Buy a donkey?
Yeah.
What does that mean? When you say, how much does a donkey cost?
No, not how much. I'm not talking about the donkey. I'm talking about buy a donkey like in think, you not buy a donkey. Oh.
That was exciting.
That was exciting.
The learning village, working for water, working for wetlands, these are all contributing to an understanding of how natural systems infiltrate and retain water. And you have to juxtapose the cost and the effects of these things with the more traditional outcomes of enormous infrastructure like this dam. In order to continue to use the dam, you're going to need to make some other investments, is that correct?
The question of the possible raising of the dam is not, has not been taken yet. There's so many things that will have to be taken into account. One of the things is it will be pushing up in the wilderness area, and it will have effect there. We don't have enough water in this area. We have to invest in saving water. The farmers generally have invested lots of money on sophisticated irrigation systems. They have become so much more aware of saving water.
While there aren't many jobs upstream along the Baviance River, downstream there is a thriving citrus industry. There are some jobs within the citrus groves, but many are seasonal. And all of the orchards are completely dependent on irrigated water coming from the dam. The Koha Dam citrus operation has a very sophisticated computer-controlled monitoring system that allows for precise measurement of water use.
Well, you're getting a very good harvest.
Yes, yes.
Did you know that you would be using computers like this a few years ago?
No.
Does it help you to have this kind of technology?
Yes, yeah, very easy now. If the ground is dry, then we call it 30 minutes, 10 minutes, then we will see how much water we must put in every day.
Do you still like oranges? Do you eat lots of oranges?
I eat lots of oranges.
Are you aware that the Chinese people are getting lots of your citrus fruits?
No, but I know it goes overseas.
It goes overseas? But
yes.
Oranges from the Baviance clove are being exported all over the world. This is in fact exporting water.
That's the Kara Kara.
Yeah, that's going to the People's Republic of
Yes,
China.
it is.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to look for this when I'm back in Beijing.
Locally, water is very important. And this is also the catchment area for Port Elizabeth, the largest city in the Eastern Cape. All of the people living downstream depend on the water consistently flowing from the watershed. Already on this trip, we've identified the need for less water-intense agricultural methods and the need for meaningful jobs that can provide prosperity. The Baviance Kloof is like a world apart. But worldwide and in South Africa as well, urban migration is the trend. We're following the flow of the Indian Ocean currents to Cape Town to see if in this teeming South African metropolis we can find some answers.
Let us pay a visit to the City Engineers Department to see how a township is planned. The first task, of course, is to locate a suitable site. What better location for such development than on the Cape Flats? This unused bushland of today will be the town of tomorrow. Here will stand houses, and here children will play. Sports fields, recreation grounds, and other open spaces are planned to create a continuous green belt running through the whole township.
Apparently, the segregationist engineers in the 1960s thought that the best place to build a township for black South Africans was on an infertile floodplain. Renowned community leader Mama Kaba took us to see how the township is transforming the sandy soils into rich, productive living soils through organic gardening.
Look at all that.
Like what you see, the soil is still hungry. All the soil in Cape Town, especially in the Cape Flats, really poor soil. The people changed their lives through the vegetable cabbage. My eyes is open because of cabbage. Play with the soil and make the vegetable growth. Like your kitchen, no one don't love the kitchen. Especially the sweet potato,
That's your favorite?
That is my favorite.
One thing I notice is that in this project, white and black people are working together.
When Mandela come out, says peace, work together to develop your own country. It's not only the black, this country, we own it, all of us.
The Abalimi Bezekiah project has developed unused spaces into productive urban micro-farms, which are producing healthy food, consistent income, and making the townships much more livable. With hundreds of gardens coming up in the townships, there needs to be a way to market the produce. I asked Rob Small, who together with Mama Kaba founded the Abalimi Bezekiah project, how this was working.
Is there a market for organic produce?
Totally now. We could be selling 1,000 to 2,000 boxes a week now if our farmers could be producing sufficient. So we're catering to a new kind of consumer who places a great deal of value on the ethical transaction, the impact on the environment, the job creation element, the nature conservation element. And they feel that by buying the product with their money, they're buying a lot more. They're getting a hell of a lot of extra added value.
We found successful urban gardens with the potential to feed people and transform the townships. I also met with Eric Schwartz, an experienced and innovative farmer who's been able to access larger farmland through South Africa's land reform policies.
Hello. How are you?
Thank you. I like to work with nature. And if I can grow food in a way where I can protect nature at the same time, for me, that's more satisfaction. Because I believe that when I die one day, or when I leave this earth, I should leave something behind, and I should leave it in a better condition than I've received it. What I've realized is our younger people are moving away from farms. What we started last year with the help of the Sustainability Institute was a training program for young people. They won't only be trained as farmers, but also building entrepreneurial skills. The one reason why I like a lot of growth on the farm is where you store all your carbon, you know.
So actually, you're not just farming for vegetables, you're farming carbon.
Exactly. After 12 years, the carbon content in these soils have increased from 0.4% and we're just above 1% currently.
Well, you're going to go up to 4 or 5% at some point.
I want to get to 5. Yeah. I want to get to 5 over the next 3 years.
I met with Eric at the well-known Spear Vineyard in Stellenbosch, near Cape Town. This iconic estate is an early adopter of very progressive agricultural policies.
You know, the history of this area is one of, you know, the farm labourers have been badly treated. And this farm's been badly treated. And yet, now we can drive in areas of the farm and the pastures are lush. And so the forgiveness of nature is amazing. In a handful of healthy soil, there are more microorganisms than the humans on Earth. which is just an incredible concept to get your head around. They work together and produce fertility. Someone had said that the first law of nature is the law of diversity.
Yes.
And that's a principle we're trying to apply to everything. So we give the vineyards diverse food. Our staff do diverse exercises where we sing in the mornings together. We're working towards biodynamic or Demeter certification for the whole farm. We're currently in a Merlot vineyard, which is a red variety that we make grapes from.
One of my favorites.
And then we've got 126 hectares under irrigation, pastures for cattle and for chickens. We apply what's called the high-density grazing principle or holistic management a la Alan Savory, where we move the animals, a lot of animals, in a small space for a short period of time.
Yeah.
And that's why how we're spreading the fertility.
That's excellent. Hearing about the superior qualities of organic food made me want to sample some of this excellence. My first stop is a visit to a very special farm at Camp Hill that has been producing organically for 40 years as part of their mission of giving care. Hello there.
Hello, John. Welcome.
Thank you very much. John
Hello,
Liu.
John. I'm Helen. Hello.
Hello, Helen. Up here, is that a dairy?
Let's have a look.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Camp Hill. Taste some of our cheese.
I'll just have to do it for my art. This is great.
Something actually fills your whole being. Well, that's pure energy.
Wow. Great. Then I met Debbie, a compassionate chicken whisperer.
There's a chicken. There's a big girl.
Did you see the movie Chicken Run?
Yes.
What did you think of that?
I related because we have a Mrs. Dlamini and a Mrs. Oosthuizen. You know, chickens are originally forest animals, so they need bushes that they can go into and trees that they can climb, so they can start remembering their chickenness.
So these are happy chickens.
You can ask these girls.
How's it going, ladies?
And
You're
they
probably
don't
wondering
stress,
why I
they're not in
asked you here
pain.
today. All right. So, I mean, this is sort of the opposite of the industrial thing. This is a biotic system.
This is a common sense system.
Yeah. Help me out, Debbie, because I can't steal the egg. Come on, you're gonna have to run in reverse. Oh, what a great farm. You really do think about food when you see all these dairies and cheese making and wineries. I'm suddenly in another world.
Hi, John. This is the smell of Africa. It's strong, it's pungent. You know, Africa is not a soft continent.
No.
So I want you to experience it. And we have things here that you will not know from wherever you've come from in the world. I think that's what we must celebrate. We have a responsibility to use what's here. I think if you sit back and accept everything, I think you lead a boring life. You lead a grey life. I don't want to lead a boring life.
So you prefer local?
Yeah.
And you prefer seasonal?
Yep.
And you prefer natural?
And logical, yes.
Doing this brings you joy?
Yeah, because it's real and it's exciting. I'm not from this land, so maybe I look at it with different eyes, where I get completely excited by a berry of a tree that I've never seen before. And because I'm a chef, I want to turn it into something, but I want to share it. I want to share it with you. Cheers.
Oh, buy a donkey.
This is an oyster from Saldanha Bay.
In fact, I'm kind of hungry. This is really living well.
It is, and we're privileged. So this is the duck.
I think I'm eating Michelangelo. Do you want to have a taste?
I would like a taste. It's one of my favorites.
Well, thank you. Or
buy
a donkey. Yes.
I always say we play. We're always playing with things, with dishes, with how we put things together. I celebrate where we are. I celebrate Africa.
Oh, no.
So this is also there to celebrate the num num.
This is the num num.
That's the num num. That's the Natal plum.
This could take the world by storm. Num num could be the next thing out of South Africa. Fantastic. Buy a donkey. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Good luck.
After seeing urban gardens growing out of empty lots and organic farms emerging from once depleted fields, my thoughts return to my quest to see what can be done about restoring the Baviaanskloof. I've come to the Kirstenbosch Botanical Gardens to visit Ernst van Jaarsveld, a dedicated botanist, to learn more.
Do you experience joy because of this work that you do?
Extreme. I mean, it's my passion. It's been a privilege for myself to be able to work with nature. I discovered the richness of it and the worth to mankind, and how it still excites and inspires me.
We're going back to the Baviaanskloof, and one of the things that we noticed was that it had been massively altered by the agriculture and by the animal husbandry. And they were looking to try to restore the natural vegetation. And they thought that this spekboom, Portulacaris afra, was the keystone species. Do you feel that that's the case?
No, I agree. It's a magnificent species. It sequestrates or catches carbon to the maximum. It occurs in what we call albany thicket. You can see the whole field is dominated by it. So it is a keystone species. Unfortunately, in many of the parts, the spekboom have been overexploited. And there are examples in the Baviaanskloof where you can draw a line. You can see on this side of the fence, beautiful, healthy spekboom veld, the other side, nothing. The wonderful thing about them is that because they are vegetatively so easy to repropagate, one can just simply make cuttings in situ and just plant them.
I thought about the role of adversity in adaptation.
Yeah.
Does it strike you that's true for human beings as well?
Oh yes, I think often some of your best leaders in the world came from a lot of adversity. For instance, Nelson Mandela. I don't think he would have been the same leader if he hadn't gone through that long period of hardship in the jails, and he was shaped by suffering. And in the end product of being hating his oppressors, he made friends with them. He overcame evil by doing good. That's the example to the world that we can be thankful of. And what you see today is a healing process. It's not completed. There used to be forests with very, very tall trees, and those first trees were used for building of ships and houses. But we've got paths throughout all these forests going up to Table Mountain, so the mountain is accessible, and we encourage people also to go for walks. And one can walk right around on the contour path, for instance, right to Table Mountain.
I take Ernst's advice and see for myself how the landscape has been healed.
This is an area where a pipe was built to deliver water to Cape Town in 1888. One thing is to deliver water through pipes, but another is to infiltrate water into the system. And that's what all this vegetation is doing, and that's what we need to do all over the world. It's amazing how much vegetation can come up over time. If we think that our task in life is just to selfishly gather as much material things as we can for ourselves, and that seems to be the kind of dominant worldview at the moment, if we continue with that, then the climate is going to change, and the consequences that science is telling us are catastrophic. So we're going to see increased incidents of droughts and floods and famines, and as human population has reached this scale that we're 7.2 billion now and we're adding 1 billion people every 12 years, it's not possible. The people who are privileged and the people who are not privileged have got to realize that the task is exactly the same and that we need each other. That there's no us and them, there's just us. We need to restore very large-scale damaged areas of the planet. So we have to act as a species on a planetary scale.
I've returned to the Baviaanskloof with my old friend Willem Verwoerde, who has come to share his vision of an economic model that can help to revitalize the kloof and the world.
I think this place, Baviaanskloof, is could be a pilot and a very important example to show how this new economy would work.
When I look out at these highly degraded landscapes, it's possible to feel sadness for the degradation, but it's also a huge opportunity, isn't
it? Yeah. It's a tremendous opportunity. In the 20th century, you have seen that the value of nature has gone away in one way or another. It's not in our system. So people and financial institutions, but also industries, governments, have seen it as a kind of separate thing.
We're facing climate change. Yeah. How are we going to deal with climate change? The talk just goes on and on and on. But yet here is something that can be done.
Yeah. Especially these man-made deserts, we can turn them into green areas again. It's lots of effort, it's lots of labor, but we have the financial means to do it, and it will sequester, it will be carbon sinks. But we just have to shift our attention to the natural systems. I only know that we have to work fast to get a model ready for companies, investors, and states, governments, to restore landscapes. So what I propose is that we go to a system where we have 4 returns per hectare, and that a financial return or an investment return is a logical thing, but there are other 3 returns. The return of natural capital, or the return of nature, you could say, here. The return of jobs, very important, because we are talking about people who want to work or need work and want to live well. But maybe the most important is return of inspirational capital or return of inspiration. If you bring the return of inspiration back in the landscape, it will also bring back a return of meaningfulness in people themselves.
We often talk about like the flow of capital or the flow of money. But actually there's all kinds of flows, the flows of the water, the flows of the air, and the natural flows. And we haven't really been valuing those.
No, I think, but that has to do with the flow of the human mind, I think. The flow of the human mind has been, over the last centuries, much more into the pure economic or financial flows. And bringing the balance back in the landscape is also about bringing back the balance between nature and man in the human mind. So the landscape is actually reflecting, or let's say the state of the landscape is reflecting the state of the human mind, the state of your inner self.
We've been evolving from the beginning of civilization to a larger and larger perspective of life on the Earth. But the next natural evolution is understanding the life in space. That is, the fact that the Earth is a spaceship Earth. We are in space already.
I've seen many development projects in various parts of the world over the last 20 years. Many struggle because they're not well understood by the local people, who, after all, must implement them. Here in the Baviaanskloof is a participatory process that is building a strong vision of what the people who live here want the future to be.
How can you take forward carbon credits, those kind of things? So the things that we already know about and have been talking about for a while, really building cases for them to make it more concrete.
I'll never put Angora goats back here because they were the main reason, because they will eat away the dress immediately. So I would love my farm to fit in with the integrity of the Baviaanskloof Wilderness area and the World Heritage Site. So I think that's the things that we're dreaming about, and to see if we can make it possible. From my point of view, I'm not a scientist, but I think we've probably lost almost 70 tons of topsoil on these degraded areas.
It's very important that the ecologist starts addressing their research questions in such a way that the answer can be taken and plugged into an economic model, and then that the economic model can tell the ecologists, the business people, the engineers, these are the impacts.
What is lacking still, and they're working on it, is a kind of large master plan, because they have to scale up a whole plan for the whole valley and then interact with companies and business at the Port Elizabeth region, because they are still not aware of what's happening here, and they rely on the water this valley is providing them.
So what we're seeing is that this type of activity will increase carbon, will increase the infiltration and retention of rainfall, will give jobs to many people, and it's obviously what we need to do to mitigate and adapt to climate change.
Yeah, the 21st century should be the century of ecological restoration, a restoration industry, because the restoration industry will not only bring finance, but it will bring value, jobs, social cohesion, and all this because people are going to understand as well that if they work with nature, they will. It will be easier to get a higher return for the long run, return on financial investments.
Of course, a dam lifespan is a lot shorter than a restored ecosystem. That's always there. You maintain it well, and you don't need to reinvest in it. You need to maintain it. A dam, you need to do that. At the moment, there is more water overflowing the dam than get captured in the dam, and that's because the systems above the dam don't hold water. They want to strengthen and enlarge it. That will cost them around 1 billion rand. Where restoration will be a lot less costly. You have more biodiversity, you have people inspired at restoring an ecosystem than building a dam.
This whole area was a very deep pond, and it was our last stop from town in summer.
Now it's just a small trickle, but this is better than it was before. It went dry for a while.
Yes, this part of the river that's been restored is slowly coming alive again. You know, the trees are coming back, vegetation, everything that's keeping the water from rushing down to the dam is now coming back, and you get cleaner, more higher quality, slow-moving water now.
This vegetation represents what is possible in the entire Baviaanskloof if restoration is the intention of the community. I have a confession to make. My name is John, and I'm a travel-holic.
Hi, John.
Cheers.
No, cheers.
Cheers, and welcome here in the mountains.
Thank you.
I'd worked in Cape Town, say for 20, 30 years, and I'm back here. And I'm very proud because it's very quiet here. And I'm glad to say that it's only the youngsters must be developed, have skills. That's why the job is actually the most important thing.
If the reserve is coming closer to us, maybe there will be more job creation for the youngsters because of tourism. You see, maybe we can sell something to the tourism. They will be create more jobs and maybe more training opportunities for us. So I think it will be a great idea if the nature can come closer to us.
John, there's something I want to show you.
Okay.
This picture was taken during the early 60s. And here you can see the river. It's meandering over the valley floor. Then you compare it with this picture. After this picture was taken in 1986, here you can see how the river has, because of the quick runoff, have taken away all the vegetation. By this area where I got my water for irrigation on these fields has dried up because of the change in the natural flow regime of the river system. My new purpose in life started off when my water dried up.
Now, there is a plan to increase the size of the dam.
John, I personally, my opinion is that restoring catchment areas and restoring the natural ecological reserve of nature are of greater importance than building new dams. If you've got a natural system that absorbs and stores water and slowly releases high quality water into dams, which are made available for human consumption, then I think we're working with a winning concept. It's actually much cheaper also to restore catchment areas. It can also create more job opportunities than building new dams.
What we're talking about looks like a model in which the local communities come together to do all the right things to mitigate and adapt to climate change. That's exactly what's being discussed in all these big meetings around the world, but in those big meetings they can't do anything.
No.
It's only here in the landscape. And so when they talk about money, that's where the money should come from, isn't it? Because this is what the world needs to do to ensure that the future will be sustainable.
You know what's nice about this? We can actually create jobs out of it.
Yeah.
That's,
and
you know, with a country like South Africa with unemployment such a big challenge, doing the right thing and creating jobs.
And then you get security for our whole region, water security. Everybody is going to benefit.
Jobs means more safety and less crime.
Yeah, and jobs means more money in circulation in the economy. So the economy will grow out of its own.
And there's something else. There's like a pride
too, isn't there? There's like a really different self-image.
Ownership of your natural resources, people taking ownership. But there is a condition to that, John, and that's that everybody living off the land must benefit from this.
Yeah.
Not only the landowner.
Yeah, the whole community.
The whole community must. From the farm workers to people living in villages, rural villages, everybody must benefit from it.
South Africa's ability to have a peaceful transition following apartheid is of enormous importance for the world. Imagine in the Middle East or in Central Asia, if these places are going to participate in the great work of our time to mitigate and adapt to climate change, they're going to have peace. And if they don't have peace and they don't participate, we're not going to succeed. This is a global time, and we need to act as a species all over the planet. We've had a great time in South Africa. We've met good people and new friends to care about for the rest of our lives. But the road is calling me. There are always more places to visit and much more to learn. In Finding Common Ground, the art of healing the earth.